By the pricking of my thumbs, something witchy this way comes. Ill winds mark its fearsome flight, and autumn branches creak with fright. The landscape turns to ashen crumbs when something witchy this way comes. Crystal water turns to dark where its presence leave its mark, and boiling currents pound like drums when something witchy this way comes. A presence dark invades the fair and gives the horses ample scare, for chaos reigns and panic numbs when something witchy this way comes. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Something Witchy. This is Onyx Moon, your host, coming at you live from PBNR Radio. We're here tonight with one of my reoccurring special guests, Lady Kimberly Spice. Say hello.
Good evening.
And then,
back.
Yep, and say hello to Reverend Ron. Hello.
Good evening, my children.
There we go. We got to get out. We got to get the whole family involved here. We're going to have fun tonight. We are going to talk about some things that people don't always talk about. The promo for the show was The Witch's Cupboard, Beyond the Basics. There's a lot of things that witches use, and not just witches, those following, a variety of pagan paths. And each kind of tradition or path sometimes has its own ways of doing things, but a lot of ingredients that are not your regular, get from the herb guy kind of stuff have a big place in actually working your craft.
These are usually things you either collect yourself or have gifted to you. These aren't the typical stuff you should be buying from the store. This is the true witch's cupboard.
Exactly. And so we're going to go through some of the things and make you think outside the box a little bit, because if you really are practicing witchcraft or practicing hoodoo or practicing whatever kind of Wicca even,
Period.
paganism, period, if you're actually working it, if you're doing spells or if you're making sachets or you're doing healings or you're doing candle work or you're doing whatever you're doing, you do need ingredients. And these are different than tools. I know we've talked a lot about tools lately between my show and Ravenwing's show. We've talked about tools and the Frugal Witch and stuff like that. This is taking it a little deeper. This is taking a little more specifically for your cupboard, for your ingredients. And we'll be covering things about, when not to freak out because this recipe says you have to use this. When thinking outside the box sometimes is perfectly fine, and we will talk about that kind of stuff too. So where do we like to start tonight, Miss Spice?
Well, first of all, know your ingredients. So if I've come across many spells that use feathers, animal parts, bones, teeth, fur, skins. We see this across pretty much many Aboriginal cultures, even to this day. There's all sorts of things, animal carapaces or insect carapaces. People occasionally, if they go hiking, they'll find stuff in the woods like skulls, animals, that sort of thing, shed snake skins. Even around my own house, I collect up my cat shed whiskers and claws. They all come in handy. I have a little jar that I keep for the odds and ends that I find. I call it my witch's jar. And there's everything in there from straight pins that I find to rusted nails, chestnuts, odds and ends, just strange thumbtacks that show up out of nowhere. They all have a use somewhere.
Yes, they do.
I do believe there's even seed pods in there.
Yep. I want to jump on that thing when you said, know your herbs, know your ingredients. The first thing I want to tell people, there's more than one. You need to have some good herbal books, and you need some that are more on the medicinal health-wise side, because that will tell you what is safe to ingest, what is safe to use in tinctures, and what is safe to use in those kind of things. Because all that plays into what we do with them too. And then you need to have a witch's herbal book of some sort that explains the traditional properties, the traditional uses of said herb, the magical uses, yes, for that kind of thing. Like, like going through your kitchen cabinet, the cooking spices, those are pretty much going to all be ingestible. But there's plenty of things that are not, and you have to be careful. So having the reference material is a very big step in starting to hone your craft, to learn your craft.
It's absolutely key.
It's
I don't actually have a witch's herbal. I got all of this, hand to mouth pretty much. But I do have a magical herbal that I found in the back of the Encyclopedia of 5,000 Spells.
oh yeah,
And I mean, it is fabulous place to start, but definitely get into the physical properties because some of these are toxic
Yep.
if you ingest them. Some of them are toxic if you burn them.
right.
They don't all react the same way.
No, and they're not all. It's not all cut and dry either. So that's why I say, when people ask me where do you start, I always tell them to start with, the healing herbs and the medicinal herbs kind of books first, because that gives you a really good primer. It gives you a really good basic on starting to understand, how different herbs work in different ways, and those will tell you. If I could see my books from here, which I really can't, um, there's a few really good ones out there, but it doesn't matter. Read, 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 and then read some more. So look through books.
All kinds of pages and sites that are bookmarked just for herbs, both for the really high quality photos you can usually find so you can identify some of these things. But there's even a smartphone app where you can snap a photo now and it'll tell you what it is.
Right, right. And that's not always perfect. I saw a little thing this week that said somebody ate some mushrooms that they had used with one of those, and they got really sick because it wasn't what they said it was. So,
Okay.
so use your judgment. Kind of try to reference this from what If you're pretty sure it's a dandelion, and you take a picture and it says it's a dandelion, then you're probably okay. But if you're like, I don't know, is that like clover leaf or poison ivy, and you don't know, then look in more than one place, because
At least three. At
yeah,
least three. And if two of them can't agree, look for more.
absolutely. I think it's the biggest thing in the world is, knowledge is power. And the more you know, the better prepared you'll be, and the more you learn your herbs, and it's not all just all the nicey stuff. You're going to learn some other stuff, whether you ever choose to use them personally for any kind of darker workings. I tell you to learn what they are in case you ever have to reverse something, find an antidote or reverse something that somebody else has done to you. If you find out what somebody's used, or you have an idea because you've studied this and you know that this dark kind of a spell generally tends to use these ingredients, well, that gives you the knowledge and the power to maybe find things that will counteract that. So it's again about, balance of darkness and light. If you deny your dark side and you don't learn it and you don't embrace your shadow self, that puts your light self at risk. And, I know I say this a lot, but it's really true.
Power.
Yes, it does. Because if you can't curse, you can't heal. Period. The end. Doesn't mean you have to curse, but you can. And there's a difference between doing something and having the knowledge to do something. If you have the knowledge to do something, very likely, more often than not, you find a way to not have to do that because you understand it. And I know that sounds a little whacked, but that's okay, because I'm whacked, and that's why we're here. Anyway, okay, so let's talk about bugs. Let's talk about the findings.
Well, this is good. Glad you asked that because I've got two books that I'm
Yep.
sitting here with. They're both by Ted Andrews. One is called Nature Speak. The other one is called Animal Speak. Those two give you your animal properties, period. So if you encounter them live in your life, it'll tell you if what to look for, what to look at, and what to take care of. The other one also goes into herbs, trees, the seasons, cycles, because those all factor into this. Because if you're going to start collecting your ingredients, you got to know when's the best time to pick them. And always when you save them, or collect them, put a note on the jar with the date and the lunar phase. I usually stick a sticky on the bottom underneath with what they are if I can't actually see what's in the jar.
Good, good idea. Yes, labeling is very important. I know that I found a jar of mystery herbs that I had to really, I mean, it took me probably 6 months to finally identify it. And then it was like, oh, I can't believe I didn't write that down. Yeah, because even as much as I use my stuff, I got lazy. I threw something in a jar and put the jar away and totally forgot about it until I was cleaning and organizing. And all of a sudden I'm like, okay. what,
I've done that.
what is this?
I have to recycle things periodically because some things I only can collect once or twice a year,
Right.
like nettles. I keep a couple glass jars of them in my witch's cupboard because they're very useful if you have somebody staying with you that you want them to leave. Just throw a handful in their laundry, wash their clothes, and they leave of their own accord very shortly.
Yes, that laundry trick is such a wonderful trick too. And bear in mind, folks, there's a lot of ways you can use something as innocuous as doing somebody's laundry to get them to see things from your point of view, let's just say. That's like one of my favorite ways to work because you know what? You can make a sachet of stuff and throw it in that laundry thing and nobody will ever be the wiser. Anyway, that's a big trick for me for like I don't want to say command and compel, but yes. Command and compel or
Seriously encourage.
yeah, seriously encourage. When I went to seriously encourage thing, yes. They're laundry because then they're wearing the clothes. Or and sometimes okay, most of the time it's something for their own good. You've got that kid that's sitting around the house and not looking for a job and playing video games all day and you think they need to boost their morale and get out there and look for a job. Well, you can do that. You can make a get off your butt and go get a job sachet and throw it in the laundry.
It's wonderful for motivation for so many things.
Yes.
And I've even used them on people that are quite aware of what's going in because it's better for them.
Yes. And yeah, there are a lot of good things. Somebody that is struggling with, how shall I say this, forms of addiction, regardless as to what it is, because sometimes they will ask for help, and you can give them a charm in a sachet form for them to add to their own laundry, and it becomes even stronger for them. So it's not always it's not always a matter of you're not really altering somebody's free will when it's done that way. I mean, there are ways to light a fire under somebody's tail and get them to do things that don't necessarily have to alter their free will, so I don't want anybody getting all Twitter-pated. But, it's a reality. It's part of your craft. If you're going to be a witch, then be a witch. If you don't want to be a witch, then don't be a witch. But don't be shying away from all this kind of stuff that ultimately has positive outcomes. And, if you're worried about it, write a back door. Like I say all the time, write a back door.
I tend to leave it up to the deity I'm working with. That way it's ultimately in their hands and it's not up to me.
Yeah, and that's what I mean by a back door. I may put whatever into this spell and I want it to do this, that, and the other thing, but then I also say, I leave it in universe's hands or leave it in whatever specific deity, because, if you have if you have other plans, then, this is my plea, kind of thing. But then,
it's meant to go on. Please don't make me live with this.
Right, exactly. So, so I write back doors into a lot of things just to give the chance that universe has a plan that I don't understand, and that frequently happens. So,
You end up paying karmic
right.
brownie points for it.
And that way, I never doubt my workings. Because the minute you doubt a working, you've killed it.
It's done.
So I'm going into this with no doubt. This is what I'm asking for. This is what I want. This is what I need to happen. But if there, you know more than I do. You know what's in my heart. You take it from here, kind of thing. And that way, it covers my butt. And at the same time, it sets it out to the universe that, this is an issue. It needs to happen. And, they pay attention. So, anyway. All right. So now let's get back to, because we're rambling, because we like to ramble.
You were asking about insects. I mean,
Let's,
often people will go to their windowsills throughout summer and fall, especially. They'll find either, dead spiders, dead wasps, dead bees, that sort of thing. Collect them up, dry them out if they're not already, and toss them in a jar. I've used them in poppets, as a matter of fact, when they got rid of my ex-husband out of my life. Worked beautifully. I used a wolf spider carapace, a wasp carapace, and termites.
Cool.
And I haven't heard hide nor hair of him since, and he's left me alone, thankfully, and that's been, a year and a half now.
And that's a wonderful thing. But yes, spiders, spider webs, like you said, bees, wasps, things that Mother Nature gifts you, things she puts in your path. Okay, gross as it sounds, you find a dried up frog or the dried up lizard, scoop it up. Scoop it up. Take it. You're walking through the woods and you find some bones or you find a mostly desiccated carcass of something. If you can stand it, those are great ingredients. Bones, teeth, skin, hair, whatever. We're not saying go out and sacrifice any critters because that's not to be done.
No, that's not a gift.
Yeah,
that's taking it. That's wrong.
That's absolutely wrong. We're not talking about, squash the fly and then use it. No, if you find you are gifted with the remains of a critter, then count that as the gift it is and take it from there. But we're not talking about any kind of stupidity.
It's not like I go out to the side of the road and I pick up roadkill. Mind you, I've been known to collect things from the deer and other squirrels and raccoons and things that have been, clipped up and down the road. But they're already, their spirit has long since crossed that rainbow bridge.
And at the same time, whether you walk across it, you find it on the side of the road, whatever, if you're gifted with it, then you need to say thank you. You need to say thank you to that critter and thank you to your deity. There's called protocol. It's called being respectful. It's called being responsible. It's called being, what's it called? Respectful, responsible.
Respectful. It's known as being a responsible steward of the environment in which you live.
Yeah. So, don't take it for granted, I guess is what I'm saying. Don't be arrogant like, oh, yeah, I get this and that and that. No, you were gifted that because probably
not everybody gets it.
Exactly. And there may be something coming up that you don't know that item is going to come in handy for, and God, Goddess, universe, deity, whoever is putting it in your path because you're going to need it down the road. So be mindful. That was the other word. Be mindful of the gifts that you're being led to or finding.
Be grateful and responsible.
That absolutely goes. All right. Well, we are about at our first commercial break. So, I hope you guys are finding this interesting. I want you to stick around. And we've got a whole lot more. We're going to go over some other things like dirt. Dirt is a big thing on my list. And then other ingredients that you shouldn't be buying from big box online stores, that you should either be making yourself or you don't need it. Because what you're buying from those big box online stores is probably a whole bunch of hokum. It's talcum powdered with bits and pieces of this, that, and the other thing thrown in to make it look.
Real thing.
It's not the real thing. And I dare any of the big box stores to come tell me they are, because I know better. And I can't say any names, but we'll talk more about this in a minute. So let me find what kind of fun commercial we're going to have. Oh, here we go. Stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back.
Looking for that special item for your mantle or that one-of-a-kind gift for the love of your life? Visit us at Sleeping Griffin. We offer many items from pyrography to metaphysical supplies. Choose one of our regular designs on a keepsake box, crystal grid, or even design your own. Need a little help with your practice? Choose from our selection of organic, hand-mixed binding salts. Come and see our Etsy shop at Sleeping Griffin or visit our website at sleepinggriffin.net, where spirituality and functionality come together. Since 2014, the Pagan Business Network has been building resources by bringing together pagan-owned and pagan-friendly businesses. With multiple resources available, it doesn't matter if you're an artisan, musician, vendor, author, publishing company, blogger, podcaster, event planner, or any other organization. We have the resources here to help you succeed. Becoming a member is easy and affordable, even for the smallest of budgets. With your membership, you will get Business Spotlight, which is an article written in an interview style, complete with details and photos. Social media sharing through the Pagan Business Network. A blog roll. A membership card for discounts at participating businesses. You'll also get discounts on tickets to all Pagan Business Network events, and so much more. You can check us out at paganbusinessnetwork.com for more information.
All right, folks, welcome back to Something Witchy with Onyx Moon and Lady Spice, talking about outside the normal, beyond the basics, things for your witch's cupboard that you might not think about. So, okay, we left off with bugs and we talked about being respectful like that. How about we talk about some dirts?
Dirt, dusts, and powders. Yes, please.
Yes, let's. Okay. There are a variety of dirts, dusts, and powders. And you see many of them on some of these big box stores. And they're really not big box stores traditionally, but for online pagan retail, they are. Dirts are very powerful things. I have a problem with a lot of the stuff that is being sold as such and such a dirt. Number one, you don't know how it was collected. You don't know if it was properly paid for. You don't know where it was really collected. And they want you to pay top dollar for stuff that you don't know about. But let's talk about some of the different dirts. Now, the biggest one, one of the biggest ones in my mind is graveyard dirt. Okay, now understand that there is a difference between graveyard dirt and graveyard dust. Graveyard dust, nobody has any need for graveyard dust. Nobody should be going and trying to get graveyard dust. Do you even know what graveyard dust is? Probably not. Graveyard dust, okay, some schools...
Tombstone.
Well, some people are going to say that, but most of them, actually, if you go back further, the graveyard dust was actually the dust off the bones from an opened grave.
Yes, good point. I
Okay.
remember my auntie bringing that up.
Right, and that is something, you don't need it. Unless you're Palo, or Palo Mayambi, or one of this. Right, you don't need graveyard dust. So don't buy somebody's telling you it's graveyard dust, because number one, it's not. And number two, you don't bloody need it. Okay, graveyard dirt, however, is another matter. Graveyard dirt, when properly bought and paid for and harvested, can be used for a variety of things. Okay, but each tradition, like I said, the diasporic traditions, hoodoo, voodoo, witches, witchery, whatever. There's a lot of different actual procedures on how to collect it and what's the proper way to do it and how do you enter the graveyard and how do you leave and da-da-da-da-da. Okay? I'm not giving you a one-on-one on that because I think that you need to do research. You need to figure it out yourself. And then you can come to somebody and say, this is how I think I'm supposed to do this. Can you help me? And then I will guide you if you've got something a little bit wonky in my eyes. But again, my way's not everybody's way. But graveyard dirts can be used for a lot of things. They can be used for things both nefarious and not. There is that thing about, the kind of graveyard dirt that you're collecting. Okay, so just to run down the basics. When you approach a graveyard and you are there to do something other than visit a relative, you need to knock, ask permission, and I leave either candy when I'm going in for the guardian of the graveyard, okay, for the gate guardian, which in my world is Papa Legba, and that's just the way it is, okay. But I do that, and
it depends on the cemetery I go into.
Yeah.
Some prefer a couple of copper coins, so I have a jar of old pennies because we don't have them here in Canada anymore.
Right.
And I will leave three copper pennies or a couple silver dimes.
Well, I'm talking. Yeah. Are you talking about? Is that at the gate?
Yep.
Okay. Well, and see, everybody's a little bit different.
Gift where I remove from.
Yes, and I leave something on my way out too. But you see, like I said, everybody's going to have a little bit different thing. But the thing is, when going into a graveyard to collect dirt or collect whatever, ignorance of the protocol is no excuse. It's not going to help you. It's going to bite you in the butt, and it's going to negatively impact whatever working you're doing.
And you don't want those spirits of a very angry person whose grave you disturbed coming back to haunt you.
Right. So, well, like I say, when I go in, I leave the candy, I knock, and I ask permission. I say, I'm here. If I'm just going, like I said, if I'm going in to visit, I may put my hand on the dividing line, the fence, the gate, whatever, and say, I am just here to visit, I am doing no work. And then I feel free to go in because you're allowed to go visit, you're allowed to go sit and commune and whatever. As long as you're not there to harvest or take something with you, generally it's not an option.
A great many pagan cultures do ancestor worship, and that means anyone who has gone before us.
Right.
Because we are all one. So if you're showing respect to the dead, they're going to let you in.
Yes, and that's what I mean by doing that. And then if I'm going to a specific kind of grave, okay, they say look for somebody, who died, or you're looking for a child, or you're looking for this or that or the other thing, because that dirt has different energy. So depending on what you need it for. And for, well, I'm not going to get into that, actually. I'm going to skip that.
This stuff on an absolutely needed basis. Otherwise, I do not disturb a cemetery.
No. I have, how do I put this? I have a go-to for somebody that I have the history on, that when I go, I pay it in silver. And rum, and pretty much anything else it tells me it wants at the time. I have a go-to for genuine, true graveyard dirt from a old black cemetery in Louisiana at the grave of a root worker that has given permission for me to use. And not just for me, because we were very, very, very clear and honest that, I will be selling this. Because I do sell some, but when I sell to somebody, I'm very selective. And at the same time, I want to make sure they're getting authentic. So I can give people where this came from, what time it was collected, how it was paid for, and it's not a big bunch of nonsense. Just as a side note, I have the same thing for brick dust. I can even show you a picture of the tunnel that it came out of and how old it was. It went back to, the brick dust I have goes back to the Underground Railroad. But that is called, in my world, responsible selling. because I'm not going to sell you something that I got at some flea market somewhere from somebody I don't know that could be giving me a line of bull. I am very responsible to source things. You're not going to find that everywhere. A lot of your smaller places and your small online retailers, they are trustworthy. But if you can't ask questions, if you can't ask where it came from, how it was harvested, if they can't answer that for you, then look elsewhere or learn and harvest it yourself. That is the best way, but sometimes people are just not in a place they can do that, and we understand that. So, genuine retailers, and I hate to say retailer, but sources, occult sources, we want to give you the real deal. We're not, my reputation means more to me than the $2 or $3 that I would, swipe from you for selling you something that came out of my backyard. It's not going to happen. Because my word is my bond, and that's just the way I am. But not everybody's like that. Learn how to collect your own. And there's other dirts. Other dirts. We're not just talking about graveyard dirts. We're talking about...
There is actually graveyard dirt that you do collect from, and I've done this myself, a particular grave. But again, it was specifically a child that I had made contact with ahead of time, and I actually brought a couple of matchbox cars for him.
Aww.
And I mean, this was an old cemetery in the valley that I moved into. It was one of the first. And this was an overgrown child's grave in the back, and it just had his first name and his date of birth and date of death, and he was 3 or 4 years old.
Mm.
So I figured these would be perfect. And actually, the first time I went into the cemetery, I ended up crossing him over because he asked for help. He was lost.
Aww.
So if I needed graveyard dirt, that was where I went.
Right.
Because I'd already paid ahead of time, but I paid at the gate, paid where I took it, and paid when I used it.
Yep. That's a good thing. Ancestor dirt is great if you have a family cemetery. Generally, your ancestors are not going to tell you no.
Nope.
And in that case,
for ancestral protection, especially in the spirit realm.
Yes, it is. It's great for that, for your witch bottle, your protection bottle, or ancestor altar, whatever. And I actually don't have a problem. Some people might, like I said, we all do things. I don't have a problem commingling my family dirt. If it come out of this specific, if I know exactly who's in there, you know what I mean? I don't have, because
they got along in
yes. Well, that's what I mean. I mean, it's just because it strengthens that connection. When I'm doing ancestor work or doing ancestor, thanking them or asking for help or, asking for guidance, because, ancestor work is a really big part of a lot of practices and a lot of different traditions. And it's something, if you don't know about, we should do an ancestor night thing sometime, Lady Spice. We start from the whole thing, the altars and all that stuff, because that would be good. And I know you're up for that. But what I was going to say, there's other dirts, okay? There's bank dirt. How hard is it from a bank? Okay? There's courthouse dirt. There's police station dirt. Think about any place, construction site dirt. I don't know. There's church dirt. Yeah, church dirt. Oh, yeah. See, there you go. That's thinking outside the box. But there you will find applications for all of these things. Whether in a sachet, whether in a mojo, a gree-gree, a poppet, any
kind of spell work, period.
Yeah, you will find
Spells,
a use for this.
Enchantments, you will find a place for this. Trust me.
I mean, even if it's a pinch of something in an oil you're making, you're adding that energy. But each thing, in a prosperity, a bottle of prosperity oil or a prosperity gree-gree, why wouldn't you want some bank dirt in there? Banks make money,
All kinds of it.
Yeah, and nobody's going to notice if you're at the bank and you've got, you're not going to go dig up a shovelful, but a little solo cup, nobody's even going to notice. Not unless you do it all the time.
Keep little plasticine baggies,
Yep.
little tiny, the ones you transfer the stones in.
Uh-huh.
I keep a bunch of them in my pocket just in case I happen to come across seed pods or things like that.
Right.
And it goes. And a pinch or two in your fingers, that's all you need.
Yep. It doesn't take, it's quality, not quantity, and I tell people that all the time too. You know, I've seen spells where it's this ounce of that and a half a thing of this and 2 scoops of that and da-da. No, because that gets expensive. This is where the frugal witch comes out. It's in your intent. It's in how you work the ingredients. It's in how you're charging it and what you're doing with it when you're putting it together.
Well,
Um,
I have seen spells that do require specific things like, 9 rancid coffee beans, or,
that's a little
3
different.
ounces of this, or
Uh,
something like that.
and there are some yes, okay, I will concede that there are some spells that you probably should follow the recipe too. But I'm thinking more of the kind of thing when I'm making stuff. Like
Oh,
when I'm not
I
really.
never measure anything. It's a pinch, a handful, stuff until it's full.
Right, or I like spirit guide me a lot with my herb workings because I have grabbed things out of my cupboard that I had no idea why it was in my hand, but if spirit told me to pick it up and use it, that's what I used.
Oh yeah.
And then I'd go back later, obviously, and go, why was I supposed to put that in there? It's like, oh, okay. It's like,
Right.
yeah, it's like somebody, God, do I even have I don't even think I have my notebook here, but doggone it, I wish I did. I have, like, look up flax seed. That sounds like such a crazy ingredient, but I'm not even going to tell you but you got to look up flax seed. And then you'll see why a lot of my stuff, I will throw some flaxseed in there because it has a magical property. And I like what that magical property is, and frequently it works out. But, it's not always like that. But yeah, dirt. So, is there any special hard and fast rule for collecting dirts at a bank or at a police station or whatever? Not so much. I would always thank whatever nature spirits are around because basically you're disturbing their earth at that point. But there's not specifically like it is with a graveyard. Graveyard, you're much more dealing with spirits. Now, that's not to say there's not spirits where you're taking dirt from in front of a bank. Because, as I have told people 1,000 times, every bit of this earth is a graveyard. Truly it is. Because we have no idea what went on in that spot of ground 1,000 years ago
Past years.
or whatever. Yeah, who knows what's under there. So to be safe, leave an offering. If you smoke, leave a cigarette. You're not going to really be carrying a miniature of vodka around with you, probably at the police station or the courthouse. But pour it some water. Leave it a penny. Leave it a dime. Just do something to leave back and pay respects, like we said.
The crystal at the base of the plant, in the planter that you took it from, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
'Cause the plant loves the crystal bits.
Yes, they do. And so you're disturbing the earth of some sort. So be respectful when you're taking that stuff, but think outside the box. So we've talked about bugs and we've talked about dirt.
Uh, Powders. There's a couple of things like brick dust, powdered brick dust. Raven Wings was wondering what it was actually used for.
Okay,
My first go-to is protection barriers at your doors and your windows.
very good. That's what I use it
Or
for.
your the perimeter of your home.
Yep.
It's I believe, use it in your Grigri and Moto bags. Yes.
Only certain things. Only certain things. Protection.
Effective.
Protective, yeah. Frequently we'll have some brick dust in it, along with some other things. So oh yeah, and you got in.
Big one is don't throw out your eggshells, folks. Please dry them out. They're powdered down and ground down into something called cascarilla powder. There's quite a number of uses for it. Go look it up. I'm not going to hold your hand on this one, but it really does have 1,001 uses. Not only that, but your rose bushes and other plants outside love it. It's a calcium source.
Yes. And that is a very good point. Yeah, so many things that, it's called, green witchery too in my book because you're reducing, you're reusing, you're recycling instead of wasting stuff. That's a good thing too. I mean, and I'm gonna go, I'm gonna go a little step further because I got 1 minute till our next commercial break.
Flu powder.
Huh?
Flu powder. People think they've heard this in Harry Potter, and actually, kind of weak on that. It comes from the inside of a chimney flue. I actually collect mine from the inside of my mom's pellet stove every time I go to clean it about once a week.
Oh,
It's
that's,
that really rich, dark, greasy kind of
yep,
carbon.
yep.
That is actual real flue powder.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, no, I hadn't thought about flea powder, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Um, but no, I think what I was going to say was there's a powder that's full of icky, yicky, nasty stuff that you're not going to find any real deal. If you want it, you're going to have to make it. You're going to have to research a recipe. And you're going to have to be sure you want to use it because it is very powerful, very dangerous stuff. And I have seen people willy-nilly talking about this powder. Care to guess? Anyone? How
Okay,
about gopher
you got me
dust?
stumped.
Go,
Oh God, yes. I hadn't even thought of that.
yeah. Well, I do because yeah. Gopher dust is one of those things that I see people all the time thinking that they're gonna, buy or use or whatever. Are you kidding me? Do some research. Find out what it's really used for and find out just how doggone dangerous it could be. I know that most of you that are listening or will listen to this show, once you totally understand gopher dust, you're not going to want to mess with it. You really don't. Looking for authentic pagan wares? Then check out Onyx Moon Emporium, where they offer an eclectic mix of metaphysical and spiritual related items, handcrafted using old recipes and traditions, where everything is created in small batches by authentic and experienced practitioners. Their promise to customers is authenticity. From witchy items, conjure goods, setting of lights, to a wide selection of magical and conditioned oils. Also handcrafted wooden grimoires and journals, made to order magical candles in all shapes, sizes, and intents. From angel kits to gree-gree, herbs and curios, from naughty to nice and everything in between. Many items are custom made, so they are uniquely yours. Special orders welcome, and if you have an idea for something you're not finding, they're happy to work with you. Need an oil that's not listed? A spell you can't find? Looking for that hard-to-find herb or curio? They probably have it, or they can make it. Visit them at onyxmoonemporium.com or find them on Facebook. Onyx Moon Emporium. From angels to Zen, find everything for your magical life. The Raven's Rune is a spiritual resource center where you will find magical things for magical people. Handcrafted candles, incense, essential oil blends, and amazing hand-tooled custom leather goods. Check out their Wheel of the Year candle and incense packs. Each Sabbat has its own special blend, made during the correct moon phases by a practicing British traditional witch, to give your magic a boost. Using her knowledge and expertise, these products don't just smell good, they work. And you'll love the hand-tooled leather goods, Book of Shadows, journals, bracers, candle mats, and many other ritual tools. You'll revel in the magical feel of old-world craftsmanship. They also offer unique psychic readings. Liz is a talented sensitive. Her insight. All right, welcome back, folks. Hopefully we stick around for a few minutes this time. That was funny. I think that somebody didn't like me talking about gopher dust. So we're not going to talk about that anymore. Now we're going to talk about, how about talking about plants and flowers and things that you run across every day that you might not think about using because they just don't jump out at you that way.
Rose hips. How many times do you walk by, a rose bush, a wild rose bush, and there's hips there because all the petals have fallen off? Collect them. Not only do they make really great tea, they're great spell ingredients, and you can dry them or press them for oils.
Yes, very good. And you can even use fresh for oils. Actually, I've got some rose water recipes and stuff like that. So think outside the box. But I'm talking about, okay, like you go to a wedding And at the end, there's extra flowers on the table, or there's a bouquet that somebody didn't want, or something, whatever. Collect them if they're not going to use them. Dry them.
Girl destroys her basket, go
Right.
for the flowers.
Collect those flowers, because wedding flowers, can you think of a more wonderful thing to use in any kind of love workings? And I'm not talking about your silly, typical little love spells. I'm talking about love workings, love of family, love of whatever. But, for things that bring things together.
Bottles.
Pardon me?
Those would go into the home protection bottles, the sachet bags that go in under your kids' pillows.
Oh, yeah.
That sort of thing. That's fabulous for those.
Yeah, that would be great. That would absolutely be great, because, it's about love and bringing things together and getting a family and starting a family, those kind of things. Wedding flowers would be great for, like the welcome new baby sachet. Yeah, hope and joy, all sorts of good things. But then there's other flowers, that a lot of people consider weeds. Dandelion. Dandelion's great, Plantain, yes. Well, that's kind of going back to the herbal things. But
Exactly. I mean, I've seen so many people that couldn't tell me the difference between a male and a female mare's tail.
right. And that's just, again, learning your herbals, learn to work your craft, learn to work with what's gifted to you. Walk around, I'm not going to say walk around with your face buried in the ground, because then you're going to run into the tree and knock yourself out. However, you're taking a stroll, pay attention, because the universe just might gift you with something that, right now you have no idea where you're going to use it, and 2 months from now you're going to find something that really, go, oh yeah, I had one of those things, and you'll find you'll need it. But like Lady Spice said, and I will reiterate, label date, label where you got it, where you found it, where it was from, something, give yourself some information on it. And that way,
Label what it is.
at the very least, what it is. Yes, because, those jars of mystery herbs, I was very, very upset that it took me like 6 months to identify something, and I should have known what it was. And as soon as I figured it out, I knew what it was, but it took me a while.
Mom.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I've had one of those dope moments more than once.
Yep. Yeah, we have those crazy little witchy moments where we don't know what's going on. We all have our blonde moments, myself included. That's why I go
have those aha moments, because I came across one of the old badger hair face brushes for shaving.
Oh, wow.
Foam brushes. The handle was shot, so I collected the hairs out of it. I actually have badger hair now.
That's very cool. Oh, you know what? I wouldn't even thought of that. See that? There you go. That right there was worth this whole show. So now the women have got to go raid the husbands and the grandfather's old shaving drawers and find that badger brush that nobody even remembers they have. That's a good idea. I would imagine
about reduce, reuse, recycle. Witches didn't have stores. We didn't have online shops to go to. We had to make do with what we had, and we had to be on keep a sharp lookout for the things that were available to us. I mean, go on a hike, take a couple of baggies with you. You never know what you're going to find. I went traipsing through the woods one day and came across bits of a wolf's skull.
Oh, wow.
So I saved some of the hair that was still left attached to the tail, and I saved part of the jawbone, and it still has the teeth intact. Because I use a lot of animals in my workings, it sits on my altar.
Wow.
I have a bear claw and tooth that was harvested from a bear that I'd watched grow up, but it became a danger because it wasn't afraid of people anymore. So I was able to harvest not only some of its pelt, but its claws and teeth as well.
Wow. And lets everybody know you're way up there in Canada, so things are a little bit, they take bears serious up there because, they take them serious here too. But I just don't want anybody.
I sent you the link to the $10,000 worth of damage done to the inside of a Lexus by a bear.
Oh yeah, I believe me. We've got stories.
In Vancouver.
Oh wow, yeah, we've got stories too. I'm sure. So
lots of them. I mean, when I first, before I moved down to actually somewhat civilization, I lived up in the interior of BC, which is in the middle of up your muckluck nowhere.
Right.
It's 200 miles past the last exit off the highway. It's about 5 hours drive from Vancouver.
Okay, but you know what you just said? You said mukluk, and I'm sure that I'm probably one of the few people that's not in Canada that knows what a mukluk is.
It's actually Aboriginal footwear that the Inuit wear.
I know.
Leather hide, and it's layered with fur because they leave the fur on. It's extra insulation, and they're so comfy and warm.
They're hard to put on and off. I'm telling you, I know what a mukluk is. I lived in Frobisher.
Yep.
For a very short amount of time, and the only thing we had up there was Eskimos, polar bears, mukluks, parkas. Oh my gosh, I still have. I'd skidoos, absolutely. Oh my goodness, yes, it was fun. It was way back. I don't know. I'm old, and I was like 3, 4.
I worked up near the Arctic Circle in the so-called quote-unquote summer. It was the end of August, beginning of September, and the frost was already an inch thick up there.
Oh wow. Now
they were laying in the new tracks on the permafrost that was forming.
Oh wow. And I know this has nothing to do with whatever, but those were some cool stuff. Talk about whalebone and stuff like that the Eskimo artist used to have. Oh my gosh.
Found, desiccated, dried. I live near an ocean now. I have found crab shells. I have found snail shells. I have found sea snail shells. These things will show up on the beach.
Yes.
Collect them, clean them up. They're useful.
Oh yeah, we didn't even talk about like rocks and stones and hagstones and things that you'll find on the shores and the whatever. Not just the forest, but your bodies of water are very giving. Again,
walking in nature. Period.
Yeah,
Done and finish.
Whatever nature you've got, absolutely.
Hey, go walking in the park. You never know what kind of a bird feather you're going to find underneath the trees.
Right. Yes, and be very careful what you find, because some things in some states are illegal for you to have, regardless as to whether you found it or not. Because the Fish and Wildlife game, whatever, blah blah blah, they can't tell if you took it or if it was, whatever. So better not to actually, especially out of a national park, don't do that. If something drops off in your backyard and it's going to go in your house and it's on your altar and nobody's ever going to see it, that's a whole nother story if it's gifted to you in your yard. But don't take it from a public place, because you'll land up in, the hoose cow for that stuff.
Yeah, good point. There are some things that are legal for the Aboriginals here in Canada that aren't legal for the white man.
Exactly. So,
that's where I get my ability to have my eagle feathers and things like that. Mm-hmm. I'm not actually status, but because I can prove my bloodline is Aboriginal back to the Lakota tribe, I qualify for that loophole.
Right.
Same as certain animal skins.
Right. And that's why, when in doubt, if you have to, go to a native festival, a native, native wherever to. What I'm trying to say.
Powwows.
Thank you. That's what I'm trying to say. Whatever's local to you, whatever's native to your area, your neck of the woods. And, if you just have to have that feather, most of the time they're dyed turkey or they're whatever, but every once in a while, and you're going to pay a pretty penny for it because they know. But that is part of their trade and their commerce, and that is not illegal for them to do. And if you purchase it legally through something like that, you're okay. Because they have met the requirements. Pardon me?
Make sure you have the paperwork to back it up.
Yeah, keep a receipt. Get a receipt, babe. There we go. All right, folks. This has been fun. And once again, it's been an interesting night here with me and Lady Spice, as it always is when she's on. And we may have some really interesting news about Lady Spice coming up, in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned for some of that. And otherwise, I hope you all have a wonderful week. I don't know exactly what we're doing next week, because, it takes me a day to figure it out. And but at any rate, we'll see you soon. Thank you and good night from Something Witchy with me, Onyx Moon, and
Lady Spice. Good night.